Some ask why I focus so intensely on the issues in South America. Primarily, no one else is, and the big debate in our country right now that everyone's talking about is our border. I don't think anyone has an issue with people coming here seeking work or trying to start a new life. The big problem, the underlying argument, is, of course, the gangs, the drugs, the terrorism, the bad actors. And almost universally, it all starts down here in Colombia. And as go things down here, so goes this problem up here. And if you can get to the root, get really down to where all of this is beginning and where this supply is coming from, and what allows these cartels to make so much money, if we fix that, this problem up here will be a lot easier to deal with. That no one even addresses what comes through the Gulf, the problems in the Fourth Fleet, I think it tells a story of how we've become a little too overly focused on one particular issue, and while we may win a battle, we're going to lose the war. Because it's gone nuts down there as far as coke production. And a lot of people would ask, well, what's made it so much more prevalent down there lately than before? Why was 2016 and 2017 record-setting years? Well, it has to do with understanding this peace process, this issue with Santos disarming the FARC. What happened is you had a war going on between two different factions, and one of them was disarmed because of the perception that they were leftist, or that they were communist, or that they were some other socialist bad word, something like that, while completely ignoring the other group, the right-wing paramilitaries, who have flourished in the absence of the FARC. And this is why we have seen cocaine output skyrocket out of Colombia. Now, if you really want to see hypocrisy on display, it's this story. Now, if you've come to my videos, you know who the FARC is. You know who the ELN is, the quote-unquote left-wing paramilitaries, the ones that were really just trying to maintain sovereignty. It's their only choice, really. When you have such a small area, small country, you have to keep people, from taking the wealth and the resources of the country and selling them off to the highest big globalist bidder. And that's all they're trying to do. But this group of people you're seeing stand in front of the bus here, these are the right-wing paramilitary types. And it's such a different story when you hear this particular media outlet talk about the demobilization of the AGC or the AUC or any of these right-wing mercenary groups. And let me just read for you real quick, and I'll explain what the difference is. Colombia's Congress on Thursday signed a bill that would allow the demobilization of guerrilla and paramilitary groups that refused to take part in past demobilization processes. What this means is in the past, they have given, these opportunities where you could, we're going to have a weekend where if you come in this weekend and turn in your stuff, it's going to be free. We're not going to do anything to you, or we're going to greatly reduce, any charges or any ways that the state might pursue you for your actions with these paramilitary groups. But the problem with this is that they never gave any such thing to the FARC or the ELN. In fact, they put such high bars on what the FARC and the ELN had to do to even begin talking to them, it made it impossible. Like the current president, the guy who's getting ready to swear into office, this Duque, he's given 4 conditions before he'll even consider talking with the ELN. One of them is that the ELN has to concentrate all of their forces in this tiny one little area so that they know exactly where they all are at all times. Basically meaning you have to put yourself in your own prison, and they've got to lay down their arms, and they've got to admit to all these things. No such contingencies for the right-wing paramilitaries. If outgoing President Juan Manuel signs the bill into law, this would allow the collective demobilization of the country's largest illegal armed group, the AGC. Now imagine that. Most people would think largest illegal armed group down there. It's like, oh, it must be those leftists, FARC. Nope, it's the AGC. At one time, the FARC was much, much bigger. And there's a lot of ELN that they're not counting that are in Venezuela. But they are not organized. They are not these groups. They're disparate, but their total numbers are huge. The prosecution said last year the AGC has grown to have 7,000 members. The group told Columbia Reports in 2016 it had 8,000 members, including informants. The organization, which is also considered Colombia's primary drug trafficking operation, has strong control and ties with state forces, primarily in the northwest of the country. See, a lot of Americans don't realize this, that the biggest perpetrators of the drug trade in Colombia are tied in with the Colombian military and the Colombian government. And that's not a secret. But every negative story, every bad story you ever hear coming out of Colombia or Venezuela is about the left-wing paramilitaries. Not these guys who would sell their mother to the highest bidder. They don't have an ideology. These guys are simply money-driven. That's it. Whatever pays them the most money. Members of the large armed groups that take part in the mass demobilization will see their sentence cut in half unless crimes against humanity are concerned. Which means they're not going to. Basically, the idea is this. And in this last paragraph, they talk about, oh, by the way, oh yeah, FARC can too, but the FARC has a whole bunch of different, listen to this. The FARC dissidents can demobilize too, eventually. But only if 1,000 members at a time do it. See, they're not going to allow like 20 or 40 or 50 FARC members say, hey, you know what? We want to be done. We want to turn ourselves in. And, we want to not, take part in this anymore. If they would do that right now, they'd just be arrested and tossed in prison for the rest of their lives. What they're saying the FARC and the ELN have to do is they have to get somebody that represents 1,000 fighters to come and negotiate, to get any kind of consideration that they're just giving these guys piecemeal. And these are the stories that you don't hear out of our media. You don't hear about what's really driving the drug trade. And oh, by the way, the guy who's president, Pablo Escobar's former hitman, financed his campaign. This guy is tied to this guy named Popeye. And we've already called and congratulated him, and congratulations being president, Mr. Duque, and all this kind of stuff. And nobody tells you this story. Nobody tells you that, oh, by the way, guess what? The guy who's now in charge of this country, that, oh, by the way, we also send $500 million of your tax dollars to every single year. Some years it's been $1 billion. Yeah, he was basically buddy-buddy with the Medellin cartel for decades. That's what's going on, and that's what's driving the problem at the border, is that the U.S. is financing the drug trade. It's not about these Mexican mules. It's not about these people that have got caught in the middle, in between these giant, well-financed drug gangs that are fleeing with their only choice to come here. It's either die down there. You can either turn your daughter into a prostitute, turn your son into a hitman, and allow your home to be used as a way station, or you can run. You can run someplace down there, but they'll find you or kill you. Or you can try to come to the U.S. Those are your choices in places like Honduras, in El Salvador, and Guatemala. And so, yeah, they roll the dice, they come here. And the reason it is that way is because of U.S. financing of the drug trade in Colombia, period. These people didn't do this on their own. These people didn't get to this state by themselves. We're the ones buying the cocaine. We're the ones that went down there and taught these people how to grow it that way, in a way that they can harvest so much of it that you have enough of it to distill it down into cocaine. The Colombians didn't do that on their own. That was Big Pharma, or Big Agra. I guess along with Big Pharma as well. And these people, the ELN, the FARC, are trying to save part of Colombia and all of Venezuela. And in Venezuela, they've actually won very recently. Notice you don't hear about a bunch of drug violence in Venezuela. You never did under Chavez. And I'm not here to toot his horn. The U.S. could never survive in that kind of a governmental situation. We could never have a Chavez-style government in the United States. It wouldn't work. But facts are facts. When you think of the drug trade and you think of corruption and you think of violence, you think of one place, Colombia. And that's why I report on it. Colombia Reports is a good place to start. There's Tell Us, Sir. And we'll leave with this. West Colombian guerrilla war causing food shortages. Oh, imagine that. Now they're having regional food shortages in Colombia now. This pro-US, pro-globalist, pro-Illuminati country is now, all of a sudden, having to deal with its own problems. I guess we'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.